Melinda, it's been a year since the pandemic completely changed our world. From your perspective, where are we right now in the fight against COVID?
Well, I think we still have a ways to go. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here in the United States, but until all Americans are vaccinated, we still have a ways to go. But it's going to be a while until the entire world is vaccinated. So this is going to still be with us the next few years. And I think we're going to have to really watch these variants that'll be bouncing around the world. That's actually still quite concerning.
What is it about the variants that concern you?
Well, because every time we know viruses mutate, but when they mutate, they can become sometimes more deadly or more contagious. And so anytime you see these mutations, we need to be on top of them in terms of surveillance. And then we're going to have to figure out, do we need to tune various vaccines to take care of them?
So your foundation has committed $1.75 billion to the fight against COVID. I know your team is very diligent about looking at where and how that money is spent. In your view, where is the vaccine rollout working and what's not working?
Well, I think it's working in some of our high income countries. We're starting to finally see, much broader distribution, for instance, in the United States and in some of the European countries, but it is not at all working yet for middle and low income countries. And, those are places where people are struggling. They have their loved ones who get ill. They can't get them to a hospital, much less an ICU. And so they are really still struggling in many countries around the world.
So there's obviously a moral case for vaccine equity, but what about the economic case? Why should somebody in New York or San Francisco care when somebody in Africa gets the vaccine?
Well, absolutely, it's the right moral thing to do. But economically, we're not going to have as swift a recovery in the United States or in Europe if we don't make sure that everybody gets vaccinated. Because what will happen is this disease, we know it crosses borders. We've seen it all over the world. And so as these variants break out, they will absolutely come back into the United States and Europe and Japan. And so our supply chains won't fully be up and running. We won't get our travel industry fully and leisure up and running, or the business community up and running in terms of travel. So economically, if we're going to reopen the global economy, we've got to take care of this everywhere.
I wonder if you think we're going to see the most meaningful change in the world coming from philanthropy, coming from wealthy people like yourself who can make certain things a priority rather than governments in the future. Is that how the world is going to change?
No, I don't think so. I think what we should expect is that philanthropy can also often take risks. They can try innovations that sometimes work and sometimes fail. They can look for new solutions. They can help us collect the data. But ultimately, it's always up to government to scale up these innovations to create this change. The vaccine for COVID is a perfect example. Those are pharmaceutical companies working with philanthropists and investors, but working with the government. Ultimately, it's billions of dollars from the government that will pull that vaccine through and purchase it for Americans and people in low-income countries. So it's always up to government, but I think philanthropy or private sector and civil society can always help lead the way.